Okay, I'm now going to show you how you're going to transfer a wireframe to WordPress using blocks. So the first thing you're going to be doing is coming up with, on your graph paper, you're going to go design your site in general, right? You're going to do your wireframing. Okay, let's just say, for instance, we're going to do it so we want some kind of a title across here. Title's going to go over here. You're thinking about, you might want to put a couple of pictures, maybe 4 pictures across here, right? And then going to have some kind of a heading, and then we're going to have some information going across here. And let's say over here on this side, we're going to have some kind of another picture. These are pictures. Going to have another picture with a bunch of text. Right? See, that's how our title cover over here. Kind of how we want to do it. All right. So that's my general wireframe. But how do I get this onto a WordPress site? The way you're going to be doing that is you're going to start off by figuring out your columns and figuring out your containers, and then you're going to put your blocks inside of the column. The way we do that is you come over here and you're going to figure out where are your columns. Okay, so let's just assume this is a title. So we're just going to put a title, the first thing across the whole thing. But we definitely want to have some sort of space between the edge and where this is all going to start, right? So we know we want some kind of a margin running kind of down like that, right? We want some kind of a space. So that's going to be, right, we're going to have like a column on both sides like that. Okay, so you want some space. That's going to be one part of the column. Okay. Top and the bottom. So for this part, we want to put in, we want some kind of a words in here. And in this part, I think that all those pictures can go together kind of in one part of that. And then we get down to here, let's say we want this over here, and then we want to have some sort of space, and then we're going to have this happening over here. Okay, so think in terms of the finishing up the columns. So that, because these columns right here, this is all kind of like one thing. So this is a column block that would have 1, 2, 3 different rows. So right, so row 1, row 2, row 3, and the bottom part has 4 columns. Okay, so let's think about it like that. So now let's think about what our spacing would be. Okay, so say we want to have, we're going to do it in terms of percentage. When you do a column, you could do things in percentages across. So for this column here, so this column right here, let's say we want this to be a bit of space over here. So let's do 10%. It's going to have blank space. And then, so 10% on each side. So the middle column that I'm going to be making would be 80%, right? Because 80 plus 10 plus 10 is 100. So this right here, this width is 80, this width is 10, and this width is 10. Okay, so I'm doing a column that's 3 columns wide, and those are how I would do it. And within here, in the column, you can actually put things underneath it. You press your little plus inside the column, right? And you could actually start putting in what you're putting in there. So so this would be probably start off with a block in here. This would be a heading block. I'd probably put in a heading block here, right? And so I probably don't really need to have another column. This is going to be the same column. So underneath here, though, I'm going to do a different block. And underneath this block, I'm going to make a gallery block. This is a gallery block. I'm going to make a gallery block. And I'm going to say it's going to be 4. And after I put the gallery block in, I can choose it and I can figure out my spacing and things like that. I'm just doing my basic blocks. So I have a heading block and I have a gallery block inside a column that has, inside this column, right, that has 3 columns wide. Okay, so now I'm going to think about the other part. Looks like I actually want something with 4 columns. So I want this column. I'm going to put column block in here, and it's going to be 4 wide. So again, 10%, because I want this to line up. So the 10% on each side will make it so it lines up. And then I'm going to put I'm going to have a list block here. And then here I'm going to have an image with some text underneath it. Okay, so from here to here, looks like it's a little bit thinner the way that I did it. This is going to be, say this is going to be 30%, and this is going to be 50%. Okay, so I have a 10%, 30%, 50%, and 10%, which equals 100, so that's all going to line up. Okay, so now inside this block, I press my little plus, and I'm going to put in a list block. And I actually might want to start off, probably, I'm thinking maybe I want to start off with some kind of a heading. So maybe I'll start off with a heading block. Some kind of a heading. And then I'll put a list block underneath it. So there are 2 blocks that I'm putting inside of this column. And this column, I'm going to put in an image. Right, I'm going to put an image block in right here. And then right here, I'm going to put in a paragraph block here. So I have all these blocks together. And when I actually go in there, I can kind of switch around how that's all going to work together. Okay, so I think that's my plan. So 2 different column blocks, one's 3, one's 4, and then inside the column block, we put this different content. Okay. And when I actually get to the WordPress, I can change things around a little bit, and this is a good place to start. Okay, I'm now going to show you how to turn this diagram into a WordPress page. This is the page. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to the page, all my pages, layout example, edit. I have made this so that it is a blank template. So when we go over here to show this, it is completely blank because nothing's on here because there's no header or footer because it's just the page with no template attached. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is look and see that we've made 3 columns right here. So I can go over here. I'm going to do columns, 3 columns. In my first column, I'm actually going to put that so it's at the top. It just makes me feel it's just distraction free. We want actually toolbar on top. There we go. Toolbars on top. All right, so now I have my things up here. I'm going to go over here. I have 3 columns. So this column, I want that to be, we're changing this from pixels to percentages. So let's say I want the first one to be 10 because that's what I said. And then I want the second one to be 80. And I want the third one to be 10. Okay, so now I have my 3 columns. If I do that, you can see it better, I think. All right, so those are all my columns. This one's 80. That one should be 10. This one should be 10. Okay, so in the middle column right here, I want to put in some kind of words. So I'm going to start, looks like a heading. So I'm going to do a heading. It's going to say, this is the page. Okay, so that's what I'm having my heading. Again, I can change the text color, all that kind of stuff. All right, so this is the heading. I'm going to update it. And there we are. This is the page. That's what it says right there. Okay, with those columns on either side. Okay, now we're going to add these images right here for a gallery. Right, so underneath it, we're still inside of this column. Right, we're still inside of here. So we're going to add, right in here. I'm going to enter. That's why I know I'm inside it still. And I am going to look for a gallery, / gallery, looking for the gallery block. Right, I'm going to my media library. I wanted the 4 pictures. So I'm going to go 1, this one, 2, 3, 4. Those 4 have been selected. I'm going to create a new gallery. Insert the gallery. So you can see right now I have 3 in a gallery and 1 underneath it. So if I go over here to my gallery block, it said at 3, I want to go to 4. So now I'm going to have them, I'm going to update that. Oops. So now you go over here and they're all lined up, right? So now I have that right here. Okay, I can do some advanced stuff with here also. I can work on the padding, the margins, so that there's how close, which the margins are how close or how much space is around this in another block. The padding is if I wanted these to be kind of inset inside this column, inside the gallery, I want to have inside this column. Anyway, so there you go. So update it. It's updating. All right, there we are. Okay. Okay, so now I have the title, I have the gallery. The next thing I want to do is put in this part, and this is going to be 4 columns. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to type in columns, backsplash, columns. Okay, so this one I want to have 4 columns. I'm going to start off with this. So I go over here and I choose, this is my second column block. If I choose that, I want to do 4. Okay, right now it looks like they're lined up just because of space issues, but if I was to do that, you'd see that there are 4 columns. All right, so going over here again, I'm going to be 4. The first column should be percentage. So we want this to kind of all line up. So I'm going to go with 10%. Kind of want this one also to be 10%. We want this one to be 30. I'm going to go, oops, 30%. 30. We want to make sure this is, it's very small. So we want to make sure that this is all kind of lining up. All right, just double check that. It's 50%. This is 10 pixels, right? We want that to be 10%. This also, oh, this is also 10 pixels. That's what happened. Okay, this is 10%. Okay, I'm going to make sure they're percents. 50, 30, 10, 10. Okay, so now everything will line up. Then we have this space kind of over here. And we have this container right here, this container right here. So in this one, we're going to add a heading. Call it cats. Oops, cats. Okay. I want to go in there and I want to switch the headings. I want to switch it to heading 5, which is a lot smaller. Let's get rid of that. Okay, and now underneath this block, I'm going to press enter. I'm going to do a list block. It's my list block. So I'm going to have red cats and yellow cats and black cats and white cats. Now we can go in here and change the spacing and all this stuff, and this is the list blocks. Whatever you do to list block, you can do in here. Okay, so those are my blocks. You can see them over here. So inside of this column right here, we have the cats heading, we have the list block and the items in the column. Okay, so now what we want to do is create this over here. So in this column, I'm going to add an image block for my media library. I'm going to do this one. Just select it. And this one, it was small to start with. Okay, so there we go. So that fits. Okay, so that's the original aspect ratio. So it's going to fit in the entire block, right? Because that's outside the size of the block. Okay, let's say I actually don't want it to do that. I would like it to be a different aspect ratio. I want it 1:1. I want it more in like that. Okay, so it'll feel a little better. I think that looks a little better. All right, so now underneath this, again, I'm still inside of this column right here. I'm going to be adding, in this column, I'm going to be adding, you can do from here also, a paragraph. Okay. So now I have a paragraph. I'm starting to type this is a cat wearing glasses and some clothing. Okay, I'm going to update this over here and there. So this looks pretty close, right? So I've got my, it's all nice and lined up, right? It's all lined up because I have that 10% and all that. And then I have my title, I have my images, and I have my paragraph. So that's how you're going to lay out your pages in WordPress using the method of pre-planning all of your blocks.